The Charlotte Hornets have wasted no time in firing James Borrego. Since Borrego took over the head coaching job in Charlotte back in the 2018-2019 season, he has produced only one winning season, which ironically was his last season. As the head coach of the Hornets, Borrego has a win-loss record of 138-163. To be fair, no one in Charlotte expected Borrego to come in and magically resurrect the Hornets franchise that has consistently found themselves twirling in the abyss of mediocrity. Everyone knew that for Charlotte to become a competitive team, it will have to take time and patience. But it seems that patience has worn thin during Borrego's tenure. While Borrego's overall record and lack of playoff appearances are blemishes on his record, it shouldn't be overlooked that some of the good he has provided for the Hornets. Borrego boasted the 8th highest offensive rating in the league last year, which was tied with Boston, while also having the 4th highest points per game. But the offense is where the good ends, because the Hornets' defense last year was atrocious. So if you're the Hornets with no coach, a semi-competitive team, a rising superstar who's selling out arenas, where do you go from here? Well, lucky for you, this video will lay out a 4-stage process that anyone can follow. At the low cost of $69.99, you'll be able to actually just like and subscribe.
Romeo?
Juliet! I know I ain't supposed to be here, but I just had to see you again.
Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo?
The Hornets are actively looking for a new head coach, and as of lately, there have been plenty of names circulating for that position. So far, we've heard of Mike D'Antoni, Darvin Ham, Kenny Atkinson, and Terry Stotts. But which coach makes the most sense? Each coach that has been rumored for the Hornets job has a little bit of something that the Hornets want, but none of them have everything the Hornets need. Mike D'Antoni is the most experienced of the bunch. D'Antoni has been a head coach for 16 seasons and has coached and developed some of the very best. Players like Nash, Carmelo, Kobe, and Harden. Without question, D'Antoni would come in and have the Hornets as an improved offense. I believe that he would help develop some of our young guards, specifically LaMelo, but D'Antoni has never been great or even a good defensive coach, outside of a few seasons. But, also, there is the fact that in 16 seasons, D'Antoni still doesn't have a ring. While D'Antoni has the experience, if the Hornets want a coach who installs defensive integrity, you'll most likely go with Darvin Ham. The longtime assistant coach has been an assistant coach since the 2011-2012 season. He started his career as a coach with the Lakers under Mike Brown before. So yeah, as I was making this video, Darvin Ham got hired by the Lakers. Yeah, that really puts a wrench in my ideas. From this point on in the video, Darvin Ham would be, treated like a cuss word, and we'll just be censoring his name out. So from any point in the video that I say his name, just act like I didn't say his name and just insert your chosen coach. Then there's Kenny Atkinson, the former Brooklyn Nets head coach. While Atkinson may not provide the offensive firepower that D'Antoni has, or the defensive integrity that Ham may provide, he may be the best player developing coach. Atkinson's time in Brooklyn was forgettable, but his credit was the big reason why D'Angelo Russell became All-Star. Also, no fault of his own, Atkinson inherited a bad roster, and with no actual way to improve through the draft because of the Paul Pierce and Garnett trade. Finally, there's Terry Stotts. Stotts is the second most experienced coach on this list, as he's coached over 1,000 NBA games. He has had some good teams in the past, but ultimately nothing has come from those teams. While he lacks the hardware as a head coach, he may pique some people's interest as he was the fundamental part of the development of Damian Lillard. So who should the Hornets hire? The Hornets should hire Darvin Ham. If this year's playoffs have shown me anything, it's that defense becomes a crucial part of any championship team's aspirations. I mean, look what happened to Brooklyn.
The Hornets should look to address the defensive concerns that lie right now with their current team, and that has to start with the head coach. Also, there may be a small connection between Mitch Kupchak and Ham, as Ham was an assistant in LA for 2 seasons.
With that being said, I also wouldn't mind the hire of Kenny Atkinson, who to me deserves another shot after this time in Brooklyn. Either way, the Hornets might have to rush to pick their desired coach. If the Lakers looking to pick amongst the same candidates, the Hornets might have to pull the trigger early. The Hornets have both the 13th and 15th pick in this year's draft. Those picks, one of which is a lottery pick, opens up more opportunities to acquire talent, either by standing complacent and picking with what they have now, or moving up in the draft and picking a higher rated prospect. The Hornets should trade their pick and move for a higher rated prospect. This year's draft doesn't have a stacked top tier amount of center talent that the Hornets need. My 2 highest rated centers, Chet Holmgren and Jalen Duren, will most likely be gone by the time the Hornets get on the clock with the 13th pick, so the Hornets should look to trade. In my mock trade, I have the Hornets moving to the 9th pick as they trade with the Spurs and send them both their 13th and 15th picks, while also the 2023 second round pick to sweeten the pot. With the picks, the Hornets would select Jalen Duren from Memphis. Now let me clear up a few things. 1. I do understand that having to build through the draft isn't the only way to improve. The Hornets could look to trade their picks for a veteran center, or if they sit on their picks, they could just, target a center like Mark Williams. And 2, the likelihood that San Antonio makes this trade without a player involved may be unlikely, but with no clear direction of what or how San Antonio will retool, trading them a player is murky water with how much young talent they currently have on their team. Adding a young player like Duren will allow the Hornets to save cap space and have his bird rights, which allow the Hornets to have more options in the future as they are not nailed down by a huge contract. First and foremost, the Hornets must retain some of their young talent that have been developing for the last couple of seasons. That means keeping players like McDaniels, Martin, and Bridges. While most of their young talent are still either restricted free agents or on a team option, this doesn't disqualify other teams from making a run for them. The Hornets have developed something special with Miles and LaMelo and should do everything in their power to keep them together. Miles is undoubtedly going to attract some attention. Already there are teams like Portland who have looked at the young forward as a possible target. Fortunately, the Hornets have the advantage in this situation as they have his bird rights. The Hornets will most likely offer Miles a 5-year deal with around $100 million, but in reality, Miles will most likely attract a bidding war or more interest from other teams that will force the Hornets to sweeten the pot. So in reality, Miles will most likely attain a 4-year, $100 million deal that has a player option included. Outside of just him, I believe Martin will also return on a short year, 1 to 2 year deal. He's also a restricted free agent who may attract some interest from other teams, but not enough that the Hornets win a match. While the Hornets this offseason will retain a lot of their talent, they won't acquire so much for free agency. The Hornets will likely let Harold walk as they look to improve their defense. For that reason, I have the Hornets bring in defensive-minded free agents. I think bringing in Gary Payton II would help the Hornets in their defensive efforts as they develop Book Night. While trading can occur at any point during the offseason, I included it last because I wanted to focus on this stage independently. As mentioned before, the Hornets are looking to improve their defense this offseason, but they also wouldn't mind clearing a little bit of cap too if possible, so it wouldn't be a surprise to anyone if the Hornets explored trades for both Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward. In reality, any trades for a superstar quality player are unlikely. Most of these trades the Hornets will get this offseason is going to include injury-prone players, aspiring contract players, or players with huge cap hits. There have already been some trade rumors flying this offseason for the Hornets. The most noticeable one has been the Russell Westbrook trade. While I won't break down this trade right now, I will say that this trade most likely wouldn't happen this offseason. I do believe the Hornets will be able to make one trade this offseason. The Hornets look to bring in a more dynamic defensive player, so I have the Hornets targeting Jonathan Isaac. The Hornets will send Gordon Hayward, Jalen McDaniels, a 2024 first-round pick with the option to swap, a 2025 first-round pick unprotected, while the Hornets will receive Jonathan Isaac. To clarify this trade, Jonathan Isaac has been dealing with injuries for a couple of seasons now, but his ability to defend still is prominent. The issue is that Orlando is having the first overall pick in the draft doesn't project well for Isaac's future with all the top prospects being big men. Unless Orlando wants to move back in the draft, they will most likely pick a power forward or center first overall. Moving Isaac creates space for their new franchise player. I also will note Hayward's contract is huge for the Magic to take on, as they will most likely try to retain Mo Bamba. The 2 first-round picks should be enticing enough for them to consider it though, and they only have to eat the last 2 years of his deal. For the Hornets, this frees up cap space and adds a defensive-minded forward who can guard multiple positions. While there are health concerns for Isaac, his potential helps alleviate some of those fears. Overall, this trade can help push the Hornets closer to contending, while also giving them some extra cap room for next year's free agency and for their next head coach. This offseason is going to be an interesting one. To be clear, I don't think the Hornets will follow my offseason guide, and may even go in a completely different direction. But I do believe this guide gives the Hornets one of the better scenarios to become a contending level team quicker, while also not completely sacrificing some of their future. Also, this video was a completely overgeneralized offseason guide. Each section of this video could be its own video by itself, each trade, and the draft alone. I do still intend to make videos on all that, but this was my prediction and what would be cool to see if the Hornets do coming into this offseason.